Senator Lummis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing and for indulging us in finally addressing the topic of digital assets. When I arrived here 4.5 years ago, there was very little knowledge about digital assets. And to the extent that there was fear because it is something about which people knew very little, and in some cases still know very little. Yet the industry has innovated and grown and become a force in our economy, and in fact in the global economy. We now see one digital asset company not only make an appearance on the S&P 500, but come into the S&P 500 in about the 135th position. That's how big this company is. We see several companies going public this year that are based in the digital asset industry. Yet we've seen foreign countries get ahead of the United States in terms of establishing a clear regulatory framework for digital assets. We have allowed regulatory agencies that are unfriendly toward this asset to use regulatory functions such as enforcement actions to bring about a regulatory morass for these industries when they've been unable to find out what regulatory framework they're supposed to follow, not having received clear guidance from the regulatory agencies to which they're subject and hope to comply. So we finally have an industry coming and requesting regulation so we know the rules of the road, so we can integrate this tremendous new technology into our economy. And so the time has come, and Mr. Chairman, I'm so pleased that you recognize the relevance, importance of the United States leading in this space. I also want to thank Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who joined me shortly after I arrived here in drafting legislation that has been out for 4 years, that people could look at, that people could comment on, that we could reform and change as the industry grew, and their ability to shape the regulatory framework that protects consumers, but that also works for the innovators. And that is the point at which we've arrived today. We are ready to take that step. So I want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for their diligence in working with our side of the aisle to bring legislation about, starting with the Genius Act that dealt with the stablecoin component of digital assets, and now moving into the commodities and securities portion of a market framework. I believe we're taking the right step and not a moment too soon. You know, government's always been afraid of innovation, and the innovators in our country have had to cross barriers in order to achieve what humans are capable of and have to fight government to surpass. You look at the internet, that the cypherpunks of the 80s and 90s were creating code and using cryptography, and the government was afraid of it, so the NSA called it a weapon, cryptography a weapon, and classified it as something that should not be available to the general public. But our courts in this country decided that cryptography and code writing is protected free speech under the First Amendment. And that was a game changer. It made it possible for those very brilliant minds to make available to each other through open source the cryptography and code writing that made it possible in 2009 for the first digital assets to appear on the scene. So now we're at the point where from 2009 and where we are today, we have a mature industry that is asking us to provide clear rules of the road. And as people responsible for the government and as members of the Banking Committee, we're in the right place at the right time to help these innovators take their rightful place in the global economy as an asset that is important to our country, that is important to individual freedom, that is important to the unbanked and underbanked, and that will make available to people the opportunity to grow assets that are capable of increasing in value, as opposed to our own U.S. dollar, which is by design decreasing in value. Mr. Chairman, your leadership in this effort is deeply appreciated by me, and I look forward to working with you, Senator Gillibrand, and other people on both sides of the aisle to bring this legislation through the Senate, to the House, and to the President's desk. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.